By the late 1600s, French nobles began suddenly dying at an alarming rate. Autopsies revealed their internal organs were black and corroded, and rumors swept through the palace of Versailles of poisonings and witchcraft. By 1679, things had gotten so bad that King Louis XIV convened a special tribunal to uncover why so many were dying and punish those responsible. It was one of the largest witch trials of the modern era. 6 years of investigations that led to 319 subpoenas, 194 arrests, 36 executions, and countless others who met their demise through disease or by taking their own life. Today we take a look at the Affair of the Poisons, the French witch hunt, whose death toll far surpassed that of the infamous Salem witch trials and would rock the French aristocracy to its core. So if you're curious, let's take a walk through history. Seventeenth century France was a tale of two unequal economic realities. Most citizens were living in great poverty, barely surviving. Some so poor that they didn't even have a chamber pot to do their business in. Yet wealth was so abundant for French nobles that they would squander half of their fortunes in an endless cycle of fine clothing, lavish household expenses, fleets of servants, and ornate carriages. At the center of it all was King Louis XIV. Louis was a devout Catholic with a flair for debauchery. A ruler as ruthless in politics as he was charismatic in seduction. It was within this volatile atmosphere of excess, ambition, and moral decay that the affair of the poisons took root. It seemed that the constant pursuit of excess either ruined you as a noble or drove you to boredom. Soon the aristocracy looked for other ways to pique their interests. Gambling took hold, and while ruinous, was just the beginning. Superstition and occult practices then followed, making fortune-telling, palm reading, and rumors of witchcraft common indulgences among the elite. Eventually, murder became a perverse pastime. Go figure. Gone were the crude iron and steel weapons, and in their place came a more subtle, insidious instrument of death: poison. In 1672, French authorities were investigating a break-in at a laboratory belonging to a recently deceased French army officer named Gaudin de Sainte-Croix. Among his belongings, investigators uncovered a red leather trunk containing letters, vials, and strange substances. Soon the authorities were able to piece together Gaudin's unbridled affair with a married woman named Madame de Brinvilliers, and the couple's alarming new pastime: poisoning. Gaudin's passion for poison began while he was incarcerated for 3 months in the famed Bastille, presumably due to his affair with Marie. It was there that he met an Italian master poisoner named Egidio Exili. The two struck up a friendship, and Exili began tutoring Gaudin. After his release from the Bastille, Gaudin and Marie rekindled their romance. A romance that turned dark. Gaudin had become horrifyingly successful at alchemy, a passion he shared with his lover. Together, the pair began testing poisons on cakes and other treats, which they offered to patients at a nearby hospital, motivated by nothing more than the thrill of watching their poison at work. Having perfected their concoctions, the couple then poisoned her father and 2 brothers, crimes which conveniently secured her an inheritance. After Gaudin died, oddly enough by poisoning, Marie fled Paris. For 4 years she evaded capture, moving from one refuge to another, until she was finally apprehended in Belgium and brought back to face justice. In a letter discovered in her cell, Marie confessed not only to her known murders, but also to attempting to poison her own sister, daughter, and husband. She was found guilty of her crimes and was subjected to water torture. Stripped bare and bound, she endured 24 pints of water forced down her throat, a cruel and degrading punishment. Once the torture ended, she was beheaded, her body burned, and her ashes scattered to the wind. Her parting words were the catalyst to uncovering the debauchery of the upper class in France.
Out of so many guilty people, must I be the only one to be put to death? Half the people in town are involved in this sort of thing, and I could ruin them if I were to talk.
The fallout was immediate. Deaths of prominent figures that once seemed ordinary were soon reevaluated. If someone as privileged as the noble-born Marie could engage in such heinous acts, no one could be above suspicion. The palace at Versailles, with its already delicate balance of power, descended into chaos. King Louis himself became consumed by fears of assassination, forcing him to take extraordinary precautions. Anecdotally, it's said that today, vichyssoise is served cold due to these precautions. In the 17th century, by the time the soup reached Louis's table, it had been sampled by his taster and his taster's taster, thus losing its warmth. Louis appointed Gabriel Nicolas de la Reynie, the Lieutenant General of the Paris Police, to investigate the growing wave of poisonings. La Reynie, known for his successes in cleaning up the streets of Paris, quickly began arresting alchemists and poisoners, each one more entangled in the web than the last. Items found during the arrests included not only arsenic, nitric acid, and mercuric chloride, but also otherworldly objects, such as cauldrons, vials, deadly nightshade, and human blood. What emerged was not just a conspiracy of poison, but a plague of witchcraft and the occult. Then, in 1679, La Reynie made an arrest that would prove to be the turning point in the investigation. Catherine Voisin, commonly known as La Voisin, was arrested on March 12, 1679, outside the parish church she frequented. She was known as a diviner, a shadowy figure who straddled the line between fortune teller and amateur apothecary. She offered remedies and services of a more sinister nature, exploiting her clients' vulnerabilities in their wallets. Over time, La Voisin's clientele, returning for fortune-telling or herbal remedies, found themselves seduced by the darker magic she peddled. Desperation, as always, had a way of distorting reason. A troubled heart or a desperate desire could convince someone that a poison-laced solution like arsenic might be just what they needed to cure their problems. At the time, adultery was illegal, but men faced no real consequences. Women, however, could be imprisoned, beaten, or have their dowries forfeited for dishonoring their husbands. It seems many women turned to more drastic measures such as poisons to escape from unwanted pregnancies, affairs, or marriages. For many women, these alternative means might have been their only recourse. La Reynie learned much about the dark world of poison and witchcraft from La Voisin after her arrest. In a desperate bid to save herself, she named names, and her confessions unleashed a tidal wave of arrests. Professional peers equally involved in the macabre underworld were swiftly hauled into cells at the Château de Vincennes, transforming the prison into a veritable coven. Among the names La Voisin revealed were those of the court's elite, including a countess whose husband had recently died under mysterious circumstances, his passing now linked to La Voisin's sinister dealings. But perhaps the most shocking revelation was the involvement of Madame de Brinvilliers, one of the king's former mistresses and mother to one of his many illegitimate children, a detail that rocked the very foundation of Louis XIV's court. 11 months after her arrest, La Voisin was dragged through the streets of Paris to the Hôtel de Villas, where she would meet her fiery end. After enduring 3 days of excruciating torture, she was wheeled to the public square, tied to a stake, and burned to death. As the flames crept up her body, her final words were eerily similar to those of de Brinvilliers.
Paris is full of this kind of thing. There is an infinite number of people engaged in this evil trade.
After the execution, Voisin's daughter, Marguerite Voisin, revealed her mother's list of clients, a plot to kill the king, and child sacrifices that had taken place during black masses arranged by Voisin. The affair, which had begun with the arrest of a woman of noble rank, now spiraled into something far more unsettling. One by one, figures of high status were hauled into the confines of the prison at Vincennes. Some, knowing the fate that awaited them, fled into exile, never to set foot on French soil again. By late 1680, a name began to surface from the interrogations that struck terror into the heart of King Louis's court. Athénaïs de Montespan, once the king's most cherished mistress, found herself drawn into the swirl of suspicion surrounding the affairs of the Poisons. She had arrived at court in the mid-1660s, initially as one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, leaving behind her family and husband in the countryside. However, the ambitious young woman had loftier dreams than merely serving as a courtier. She sought to claim not just the king's favor, but his heart. Blessed with blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and a nose described as sheer perfection, de Montespan's beauty was undeniable. She managed to capture the king's attention at a time when he was already smitten with both his wife and his previous favorite mistress. Between 1669 and 1678, de Montespan gave the king 7 illegitimate children, solidifying her position as a central figure in the court's tangled affairs. The allegations surrounding de Montespan were as shocking as they were numerous. Rumors swirled that she had poisoned the mistresses who came before her, perhaps in an effort to clear her path to power. It was said that she used aphrodisiacs to manipulate the king into falling in love with her, slipping potions into his food and drink. The most terrifying claim, however, was that she had orchestrated a bloody black mass, performing a series of dark rites, naked and chanting, in an attempt to bind Louis's affection to her, including the gruesome act of infanticide as part of her ritual. For Louis, the notion that he had been duped by a love potion threatened to undermine his authority. It would be an unbearable blow to his image as a powerful sovereign ruler if such accusations were to hold true. Yet the commission had sworn to pursue every lead, no matter how high the rank or how close the person was to the king. Caught between the desire to protect his reputation and the need to maintain the investigation's integrity, Louis and La Reine decided any evidence against de Montespan would be disregarded. It remains unclear whether Louis XIV's decision to protect de Montespan was born out of belief in her innocence or from a desire to shield their surviving children from further scandal. As 1682 wore on, investigators, once fired up by the prospect of exposing a massive hidden network of poisoners, grew weary. The confessions extracted under brutal torture increasingly appeared unreliable, with many individuals named in the process either executed or forgotten in prison fortresses. By April 1682, La Reine conceded that the time had come to end the inquiry. In July, the king, exhausted by the scandal and disillusioned with the process, agreed. The final documents were burned and the investigation quietly fizzled out. Life at court resumed with its mix of opulence and intrigue, though the darker undercurrents of the affair, fueled by superstitions about witchcraft, remained embedded in the culture. The affair of the Poisons, which had captured the imagination of the public and the court alike, faded, its mysteries remaining tangled in myth and speculation. King Louis XIV, having weathered the storm of public unease, returned to the royal routine he had always known, but with a discernible shift in his approach to courtly excess. Though his reign would continue for another 22 years, he ruled more judiciously, his concerns more focused on the stability of his kingdom than on the passions that had once consumed him. The affair of the poisons ended with a sense of unresolved tension. Some questions were answered, but many others remained hidden beneath the weight of suppressed confessions and forgotten names. The political intrigue, the suspicions of witchcraft, and the paranoia of poisoning were never truly expunged. And the episode left behind an indelible mark on the French aristocracy with its dark specter forever woven in the fabric of Louis XIV's reign. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time as we explore more curious history. Take care.